Hey everyone, I'm going to make a video of how I edit my photos in Lightroom and in Photoshop. I've done some earlier videos which were just time lapses of my edits, but I'll make a couple now and actually walk you through my process. So I have two photos here. I love this method of taking photos around sunset or even after sunset, of taking two different exposures, a darker one which sets the background, the scene the way I like it, and then a lighter exposure which I will focus mainly on the car, and then adjust them in Lightroom the way I like them, take them to Photoshop, layer the two, and finish up the picture. So hopefully you enjoy that, and yeah, I can do more. I'm gonna do a video on the actual photo taking process as well, so that will come up also. So let's get going with this edit. I'll start with my background layer. First thing I always do is just check off the lens corrections in Lightroom. It's always helpful. And then go up to the top to the basic treatments. I usually pass on exposure and contrast to start with and go right to highlights. I do generally pull them down pretty hard and then offset that by increasing shadows quite a bit to really get the detail. You can see I'm going quite far with these. See how much of the whites we can bring back without causing too many highlights. We can go quite a bit, but I don't want it too light, so let's just go to 50 here. Blacks, don't need to go too hard, but that's a nice contrast there. Let's go 20. Texture, clarity, dehaze, I'll leave that for the final edit. Turning up vibrance a little bit is good, and definitely turn down saturation. Not because I don't want the color, but I will add in the color selectively afterwards to my liking. So now that I've made the basic edits, I can go back to exposure, maybe lighten this up a little bit, but maybe not. That's pretty good. Maybe a bit of contrast. But we can do that in the curves as well. Let's check the white balance. The cold temp is pretty cool, but I think we'll leave it as shot for now. We can adjust these later. That purple's pretty neat. Yeah, so I'm gonna leave these alone. Let's go down, see if we want to make a basic curve adjustment here. Again, this is stuff we can do afterwards as well. A little bit of color. I like the sun coming through here. We might do a sun glare on that. The HSL color grade, I don't think we need to make any changes to these for now. Again, these are changes we can make after in the post edit. I'm just gonna have a look here. Let's see. Yeah, I'm gonna leave these alone for now. Sharpening we'll leave after our Photoshop edits. Noise reduction. I don't need to worry about noise reduction with the background layer. We will probably have to tweak noise reduction a little bit with the car picture. Okay, so I'm gonna leave that here. I'm pretty happy with that for now. This is our second layer, and this will be the exposure layer for the car. So I really don't care about the background here. I will just focus on the car. I do like to set the white balance to be exactly the same as our base layer. So let's make sure that the white balance is the same. Yeah, 6,000 and 0. That's good. 6,000 and 0. Again, I'll ignore exposure and contrast for now. Let's just pull down those highlights. See how far we can go. Pull up the shadows, bring in some of that car detail. I will probably actually do an extra exposure in Photoshop just to bring in some more details selectively, but for now, that's pretty good. Now, when you bring in so many shadows, you probably want to bring up the contrast a little bit just to get the blacks back in. So I'll do that a little bit. If you hold down Option and pull the whites and black slider, it will tell you when you're blowing up your whites. So don't want to bring in too much of that. There's that light that's bouncing right off the car over here, and that's what's blowing us up over here. Some whites is good. Let's go 20. Bring back some blacks. Again, I'm holding down the Option key on a MacBook and just sliding that down. Now with the car, maybe you want to bring in, I like to bring in a little bit of texture, a little bit of clarity, and a little bit of dehaze. You can see the lines on the car coming in a little bit when I do that. Just a bit. And I'll smooth out the reflections in Photoshop. I'll show you guys how to do that as well. Dehaze is definitely very helpful in evening shots. So again, I'm bringing some vibrance, but I'm going to pull back on saturation. I don't want any of the colors reflecting off the car, so I don't mind it looking a little bland for now. And then we'll bring the colors back in selectively. Oops, I didn't mean to do that. Let's see if I want to adjust the curve a lot at all. It is going to be a bit of a moody pic, so you don't want the car too bright. Then it makes it look very fake. So here with cars, windows, you always get some aqua, so you're going to want to pull that back to blue. Saturation, I usually get rid of aqua. It doesn't really change anything, but it does get rid of a bit of that blue tint. I may want to try and get rid of that yellow here, but maybe not. It's okay. It's gonna look natural because we have that sun coming through the sky. Feels like I see a little bit of blue. Yeah, see the blue, and the white picks up blue really easily, so just pulling that back to about 30 brings back the natural white color. So that's better. I'll leave sharpening again after we come back into Lightroom here, but I'll show you noise reaction. So you can see the grains. I mean, anytime you're taking pictures at low ISO in a sunset dark situation, you're gonna get quite a bit of grain. This is where noise reduction is quite helpful. Usually you have to go about 40, 50. Yeah, that's good. That's good. So let's go back to the top. Just gonna compare our scenes here. So this will be nice and dark. We're gonna have a lot of detail in the clouds. That's a really nice sun glare coming through. I usually take that with the advantage of the double exposures. You can focus on the background and capture the detail you want, and on your foreground focus more on your subject. Might bring up the exposure just a bit. That's good. That's good. Okay. So let's go to Photoshop and put these two layers together. So just right click, edit in Photoshop. Oops, I gotta highlight both of them. Highlight both your pictures, right click, edit in Photoshop, and then open as layers in Photoshop. Okay, so we're in Photoshop now. When you bring in multiple layers, the first thing you want to do is just make sure they're auto aligned. Even though I'm on the tripod, you know, you're outside, it's windy. I've sometimes kicked them, moved them. Even though I use a remote for the actual shutter, I will occasionally move the camera. It doesn't take much. So you just go through auto align, highlight your two layers, edit, and auto align layers. And that will just make sure that they're perfectly over each other. You can see a small adjustment. So that's good that we did that. I like the base layer on the bottom and then work up from that. So what I will usually do is just do an outline of the car. I generally include the foreground. When I light up the car just so it looks more natural, I will light up some of the foreground as well. And that just blends in better, doesn't look as fake, doesn't look like the car was overimposed onto the picture. So let me bring in the car layer, and I'll speed this part up for you guys. I usually like to use the polygonal lasso tool. I know some guys use the pen tool, which allows you to do some curvature. It's a personal preference. You use whatever you like. I'll stick with my lasso tool for now. So, because I'm just doing the car in the foreground, I'm gonna ignore all this. I usually start at the base. I'll pick a bit of ground behind the car. So let's just use the end of this gravel as our starting point and work our way around the car. And this part is probably the least exciting part I've ever added, but definitely the most important part. So I'll stop talking now, speed this up, and we'll pick this up once I am done. Okay, so now we made our way around the car. I'm just gonna finish it off by highlighting to the end of the frame. Then you just box it around the picture. When you come back to a full circle, you can see the circle appear next to the lasso tool. That will make our selection. Now what you don't want to forget is parts like this where you have a wing selected. You're gonna want to go to the subtract mode, and you want to subtract from your selection, because obviously as we make our edit around of the car, we don't want to include this, which is really the part of the background. So unfortunately I managed to get a wing that has all these little parts in it, and with every photo I take, there's always a little bit of extra work to get around the wing when making my selection. So it's okay. So we've got the car selected now. Always save my selections so that if I lose them, I don't have to trace it all over again. Just call this one car selected now. So what we will do now is put a layer mask over that. Oops, I didn't want to do that with the selection. You could, what I will do is hit Command D to deselect my selection, create a layer mask. Command I will inverse that selection. So right now this layer is completely hidden by this layer mask. All you can see is the one below. You can disable the layer mask by hitting Shift and clicking it, which will disable the layer mask and make that layer visible again. But really what I want to do is I want to hide it. I want to bring in my selection now. Load selection, bring it in. Okay, so I've got the car and the foreground now selected, and this is black, so it's hiding everything underneath it, which is our exposed layer. So we're going to switch our color to white, and we're basically going to color in the car and a bit of the foreground. I don't want all of it, I just want it to kind of blend in. So pick my brush tool here. I like opacity 75, flow about 50 for this. That will allow us to bring it in with some gradual pace as opposed to just blasting it. If you hold Control and Option together, you can then click on the mouse and slide it up and down to create the size of the brush that you want. That's pretty good. I don't have to worry about this because that's outside of our selection, and I'm just painting in the car. That's pretty good. I may actually lower the opacity and drop the flow quite a bit more here for the bottom. I like the ground to really blend in as much as possible. I don't want to blow it out, but I do want to create some gradual exposure here between the car and the background and the foreground, so it all sort of comes together nicely. So that's pretty good. I don't want to go too bright. If we go really bright on the car, it does tend to, again, starts to look fake, right? I may switch back to black and just bring back the dark layer around here. That's good. So what I didn't do for this photo shoot, and I normally do, and I love how it looks, is I usually get a layer, take a frame with the lights on. I've got nice sea lights on the car from Diode Dynamics, and that looks really nice. Unfortunately, I forgot to do it, but that's okay. This will be a bit different, mix things up a little bit, so I'm not too bummed about it. Okay, so I'll deselect that. That's good. I like the car, the way the car comes across. I like the background, I like the foreground. It's got a really moody feel, but it's got that sun coming through, which is, I think, pretty awesome. So the next thing I'm going to do is I want to highlight the rims more. It's probably the most expensive mod on the car, on any modded car. Put a lot of money into rims, so I really like to bring out the Bremos and bring out the rims. So what I'm going to do is take a copy of this layer just by dragging down to that little plus here. Let me delete the layer mask off of that. That's okay that it's exposed. We're gonna highlight later, but what I really want to do is I want to go into filter, camera raw filter, and I'm just gonna adjust. We're really gonna blow up the shadows and the exposure here, just to show the rims, and that's really the only thing we're gonna paint in. So I'm not worried about any other part of the picture for now when I do this. Okay. So let me just bring that in and show you. So if I bring in the shadows, you see how nicely the rims get lit up. Probably don't even need to touch exposure. Let's keep it, maybe actually darken it if anything. And I do want to bring in some vibrance and make sure it's picking up the color of those rims. They're gold, bronze, nice and dark. Any sort of light, they really pick up color nicely, but it doesn't come across in the picture. Those are probably the hardest part get a lot of detail on. So that's good. That's all it took. I'm really happy with that. Let's see, maybe a bit of contrast just to darken the blacks a little bit. It's pretty good. Okay. Click OK. So we've now got this layer that's, you can see how much brighter that is, right, with the rims. And that's all I'm gonna bring into the next frame, is just highlight the rims nicely. So I'm gonna do what I did before, just bring in a layer mask, go Command I to inverse the layer mask, and then using the same brush, switch back to white, make it much smaller. I'm gonna zoom in on the rims. And now watch this. So let's bring our flow back up to 75. Sorry, opacity 75. Gonna bring my flow to 50. Get this nice and small. And all I want to do is go over the rim spokes, the brakes, and the calipers. So let's do that. And I'm just taking strokes here, just like that. Okay. Go over and expose the layer underneath where we just added that detail to the rims. Oops. Okay, so look at the front rim, look at the back rim. Look at the difference that makes, right? Those rims just pop. And if we wanted to go back into our raw filter, make it a little brighter, we can. Okay. So if I want to crank up the exposure just a little bit, we can do that too. That's pretty good. Oops. That's pretty good. Those rims just pop now. Okay, so I'll do the other one the same way. Okay, that's good. I'm pretty happy with that. Okay. So I think as far as background, foreground, and the car, I'm pretty happy here. The only things that I would do now is I'm just gonna merge the layers. I want to clean up the picture. I hate like poles. I don't know about this water tower, maybe we'll leave that in, but like all these light posts here probably end up getting cropped out of the picture anyways, but if we can, we will eliminate them. So let's highlight all your layers, drag them down to the plus, so we've now got a copy of them. Just gonna right click and merge all this layer. So I'm gonna call this final. I'm gonna put these in the group just to kind of get that out of our way. I like to keep the layers nice and clean here. Always make a copy of the layer that you're working with, so that if you screw something up, you go too far on an edit, you can just go back to your original layer. Okay, so we've got this one here. Let's see if we can start cleaning up the picture a little bit. When I remove stuff, I mean, I usually start with the spot healing brush tool. It generally does a good job, and if it does, that's great. I will just use that. See, that's pretty good, right? Sometimes, obviously, for a lot of the cleanup, I will use the stamp tool. this one here, the clone stamp tool. But this, like I said, it's in the background. I don't think it's gonna make its way into the final frame because we are gonna crop the picture. When you use the eraser, it does kind of bridge, pulls in, you can see the lines here, it pulls in the surrounding to clean it up. So it sometimes does a great job, sometimes it does not. You just have to watch what it is that you're doing. Like I said, I'm really not too worried about it because it's way outside the frame, so I don't think it's going to be a factor. But just in case we want to do a wider shot, maybe I'll leave it in and just clean it up. So let's switch to the clone stamp tool just to show you. I'll keep the opacity at 90, flow at 90, make it a little wider. You hold Option to make your selection, and then you're just copying what's on that selection. So just dragging over, and that's better. So it's really hard to clean up skies because I have so many different textures that the moment you start cloning, it generally starts to alter the sky flow. So I don't like removing things from the sky. I've had some pictures that were just full of power lines and you just can't clean it up really nice without really altering the sky. I've had lots of photos where I tried that on and I just had to abort. But this is okay. This is, again, it's very small. When we pull out of this frame, I'm sure if you didn't know that there were power lines in here, you would never guess that they were any removed. Same thing with these cars. So let's just copy over here and just extend out the frame. Just like that. And this stuff is so small, so outside of the frame that again no one would ever catch this. Well, you will know now because I just told you I did it. These little things are okay. Let's see if there's anything else we want to remove. This might be a smudge on the lens, but we can take that out too. Yeah, I'm gonna want to take out this light pole, but I don't want to affect the car. So here what I'm gonna do is bring back our car selection. Okay, and I'm gonna invert the selection so I'm only working in the background. So if I go too far down, I'm not going to paint over the car because of the selection. And these aren't really a problem, they're just distractions. You want the focus to be on your car, you don't want the focus to be on some water tower and some light pole that's in the background. It just takes away, viewers' focus from what you're trying to show. So not a big deal, but so much better, right? Without them. Got rid of the smudge. Even this tree stump here, it doesn't really do anything to the frame. Doesn't add any value. So just take them out. This flag here, I don't like it. I don't like it at all. I'm very OCD with all these little things, and my preference is just to clean up the frame. I kind of feel bad deleting the Canada flag, but it's gotta go. It's gotta go. Don't want this building here either, so let's remove that. Make this a little bigger. So you can kind of see when you start cloning the sky, there are such gradual changes in the color of the sky that your eye doesn't even catch, but the moment you start cloning over them, it does create a different finish that it just gets very, very sensitive when you do that. So let's just bring in some of the trees. There we go. That's better. I don't think I'll get rid of the water tower. I would like to, but I worry that with the sun glare, let's try it. I worry that with the sun glare, it's going to be very obvious. Let's try. Maybe we'll extend the tree here. Let's see. Bring similar colors in here. How's that? I think that's pretty good. Oh, I think that's pretty good. Oh. Okay. So this is our before. This is after. Again, just very subtle changes, but it does clean up the frame really nice. Deselector selection, that's pretty good. I may want to tint the windows a little bit, quite a bit of glare on them, even though I am using a polarizer. It won't eliminate all reflections. So maybe before we do that, let's clean up this road a little bit. I see tire tracks again, not a big deal, but just another thing that takes away from the attention of the frame. This is just clone selection tools. Best way to clean these up, and I mean, this is so much easier, right? Like getting rid of tire tracks and imperfections in a gravel road. It's already a pretty messy surface, so you're really not worried too much about about creating a unnatural looking image. This is totally fine. I do like the texture in the gravel, so you don't want to go overboard either. Just depends what you're going for, right? It's personal preference. If you don't mind being obvious about editing your photo, and then that's fine. I just want the obvious distractions gone, that's all. I'm gonna create a vignette effect in the final frame, so this we'll darken this up quite a bit. So not too worried about it, but if we can get rid of the distracting changes in pattern and color here, I think it will be a little easier. That's pretty good. That was a pretty rough job. But like I said, I'm going to darken this quite a bit. I do like some texture. Just these bright areas here. Eliminate those. If this was a parking lot and you had a bunch of parking lines, it's nice to do that too. Just eliminate the distractions. just something else for the eye to catch that you don't really want people to be focusing on. Things like this, I mean, we're really nitpicking now, but little pebbles that are, you know, if you had a rock or a wrapper or a piece of garbage here, it's good to get rid of. I don't know, let's see, there's something here, boom, gone. Let me just fix this part here, and I think that's good. I think that's good, right? Oops. So that's our before, that's after. Look at the difference. It's huge. Before, after. I mean, it's just a sea of tire marks that you don't really realize are there until you clean them up. I'll just hit this one up one more time. Okay, I think that's good. Okay, so the last two things I would do here, one more piece of garbage here. The last two things I'll do is focus on the car. So I'll look at all the reflections in the cars. There's things that are bouncing off, like there's a bit of light here that I think I like to clean up. The windows, and then I always dodge and burn just to bring out the lines in the car a little bit more. I don't mind the reflection here. I think that's natural with the sun glare coming through. I will try and maybe impose another lens flare over that, and let's see if we can increase the flare. But so let's try. Clone tool's always gonna be the easiest. Sometimes I'll mark off the selection just to control the area that I'm working in, but I think this is gonna be okay. Just little changes. Copy the area you want to use and then just extend it out. Just like that. Copy the area and just extend it out. Okay. So not a big change. But once again, right? Here's another distraction that's just gone. Why draw your attention to things that don't need to be looked at? This one, just hide that a bit. I don't have the best kit on the car for aero, but that's okay. And then you go around the car with the eraser, just look for bugs, dirty spots, imperfections that you can kind of clean up and eliminate. We'll clean some of this up too. Okay, I think that's pretty good. I mean, if you do use a polarizer, it will eliminate most of the glare in your car, so that's very helpful. So let's create another layer and let's outline the windows. I do want to tint the windows. I like them a little darker in these moody photos, so let me just do that quickly again. My favorite lasso tool. This will just be an overlay layer, so we don't have to be as exact with the tracing. I guess you could go around the trim here and make my selection, and I'll show you guys what I will do with that soon. Make sure you're in add, and then do the side windows. I'm going to include this plastic trim here. Draw my selection. Leave the mirror out of my selection, that's fine. And I have a bit of glare on the brake light, so I'm gonna tint that too. So let me make a selection around that as well. That's good. So we have the side windows, we have the front window, windshield, and the brake lights. Again, I'll just do a quick save on the selection. Windows. We have our layer. I'll change it to an overlay layer, and I'll show you the difference. And maybe we'll go back to normal and use another mode, but go back to brush. 7550 is fine. Now I'm just gonna paint over them like that. Now that's obviously way too much, but we can control that with the opacity slider. So let's bring that back to maybe 50. Let me remove the selection. Maybe pull out a little bit. Let's see, 50 maybe. 35. I think 35 is good. So see the white glare off the windows with a little bit of overlay just tints them a little bit more. Again, take your attention away from the glare on the windows. Now we could switch this to normal, sometimes does just as good of a job. Yeah, I think normal's good. You've got different layer modes here, and as you cycle them through them, you can kind of see their effect and pick what you like. For Windows, it's either overlay or normal. Generally bring the opacity down quite a bit though, so that it doesn't look unnatural. So let's just call this window tint. Okay, we'll add one more layer. This will be the dodge and burn layer. Dodge and burn. Now this will always be overlay. I keep opacity 75. You're gonna want to bring your flow way down. My go-to is usually 4%. So let's try 4%. And all you're doing here, bring your brush size down. Use your black for all the dark lines, anything you want to darken. So let's just start over here. Now these are very subtle. You don't want to overdo this. If you dodge and burn too much, it will be noticeable and it will look unnatural. The whole idea with dodge and burning is it doesn't stand out, but the results are definitely worthwhile. So just go over the dark lines, just to accentuate the lines in the card just a little bit more. Not too much. Some of these things I will darken as well. And then obviously this tire. If we can take attention away from the dust and tire, I think that's great. We don't have to get rid of all of it. We are on a gravel road, so no big deal. But it just cleans it up nice. Okay. And now you switch to white and do the same thing, but to the light parts. So basically the opposite side of the parts that you just darkened. You want that contrast to create those lines. Now this is very subtle and you won't notice as I'm doing it now, but just wait till we're finished. See that? Very subtle, not noticeable when you're doing it, but definitely noticeable when you expose that layer afterwards. maybe clean up the light. Yeah, I wish I took exposure with the lights on. It's always a nice touch. We could fake it, but that's okay. I think that's great. That's coming together nicely. If we turn these off, turn this off. Oops. This was our original base layer. Painted in the car. Highlighted the rims, make them pop. This is our final image. Then we cleaned up the background, cleaned up the foreground, added a window tint, dodge and burned, and that's good. So I'm gonna try and overlay a lens flare, and let's see if that has a nice effect or not. We'll just do a test run. So I'm gonna create a new layer. We'll use screen mode for this, fill it, click OK, and if we go to filter, render, lens flare, there's a few stock lens flares. Let's see, maybe this one. Let's try that. Click OK. Okay. I don't think that color would go. Command T to transpose, and we can kind of overlay that. No, I don't think I like it. I don't think it needs it. I don't think it needs it, but decisions. I think it's too fake. I'm gonna leave it out. I'm gonna trash it. So I think that's it for Photoshop. I think that's all the edits I want to do. From here, let's bring it into Lightroom and finish our picture off. Okay, so hopping back into Lightroom, we've got this saved, we've imported our image. So we now got 3 layers in Lightroom. This is the original background photo. This is the original foreground exposure with the car. And this is what we brought in from Photoshop. So again, I haven't cropped this photo at all. I do like to edit the full frame because at the end, it's almost one of the last things I do is decide what crop I want to apply based on where the frame ends up. You never know what kind of detail you're gonna catch in different parts for the of the photo. But we'll do some final edits here and some final color grading and see how this ends up. I think I want to brighten up the car just a little bit. So I'm gonna use this radial filter and just draw around the car. Just make a section. If you hit O, it will show you what area you're editing. Obviously we want to invert that so that we're focused on the car. I like to use a range mask just to limit what I'm editing. I don't want to edit the entire frame in a circle, so I just switch to color. I grab the dropper and just draw a square around the color frame, and you see how it eliminated all of the areas here in the background. Anything that's not in this color range, it will eliminate. It's got some foreground, but that's okay. None of the changes we're making here are that drastic, so I'm gonna turn off the highlight now, and let's just tweak this a little bit. Now the key is to just make gradual changes. You don't want to do anything too strong that will make this stand out. Anytime you increase exposure or shadows, you always want to bring a little bit of the contrast back. Again, these are very subtle changes. Going 5, not too much at all. And that might actually be good. I don't think I want to do anything more than that, right? Just brightens it up a little bit. And that's good. Now I'm gonna sharpen the car as well, right? This is the step that we skipped at the beginning, and I said I would do it in once we brought it back into post grading. So we're here now. Just gonna hold Option. Nope. See, let me zoom in here. And really what we want to do is just sharpen all these little lines here. Now when we sharpen, you can see it's, so just gonna bring the sharpening up to, let's say, maybe 70. Now what you want to do, you don't want to sharpen everything in the image, right? Some things are blurred in the background, so you want to focus on the car. So if you hold Option and just drag the masking slider, the white lines is all that's gonna get sharpened. So drag this up to about 85, I think is good. Okay, and you can see that we've just sharpened the lines on the car. We've left everything else alone, and that's perfect. So now I'm gonna bring some, add some graduated filters to the picture. Now the way I usually do this, I usually have 2 dark sides and a source of light, right? So we've got the light coming in from here. We've got the dark sky here and obviously the dark ground. So let's start with the ground, bring that up. And again, if you hit O, you could always see what it is that you're affecting. The area in red is what you're affecting by the filter that you're applying. Oops, this I just go back to this filter. Let me zoom in a little bit here. And I just want to darken this ground. Now this will be quite a bit. We're probably gonna go full stop. I do like texture, so I'm just gonna bring some texture back to that. Might even go a stop and a half or 2. Yeah, that's good. I'm gonna do the same to the sky. Probably not gonna go as hard. I don't want to lose the detail in the sky. I just want to bring in the right effect here. So I'm not gonna start with exposure. Let's see if pull down some more highlights here. Maybe 20. Leave shadows alone. Go down on exposure. I think that's a cool effect. You've got this dark sky that looks like it's about to start raining. I think that's great. I don't know if I want to change the temperature. Just gonna leave that alone for now. Maybe a bit of dehaze again, just to bring in those tones. That's pretty good. Oops, don't want to do that. Okay, so we've got quite a bit of contrast, right? Maybe pull back a little bit from the ground. I don't like going too strong on these. but I think that's pretty good. Now we do have a source of light, right? So there's nothing wrong with bringing in one graduate filter just to create a source of light. The car is obviously lit up, so it's not complete darkness. And here, just bring in the sky. So we're gonna lighten this up quite a bit here. Maybe half a stop. Maybe bring back a little bit of highlights. How was that? The slider here will show you before and after. That's pretty good, right? Got the dark sky here. This is sun setting over there. The ground is dark. You've got the sun over here, and this kind of lights that up and creates more of a natural feel with the car looking brighter as well. So that's pretty good. That's pretty good. Now there's let's see the shadow highlight. Let's see our light curve, see if we can add any more of an effect here. Maybe bring in some of the, a bit more light here. How is that? I think that's good. In the color grading, I've sort of, people always say put your own sort of tint on color grading to your photos just so they're sort of look uniform. If you use them on Instagram, you've got a very similar looking profile grid. What I do is I go to shadows, I add 25 points of hue at 10 saturation, and I go to midtones at the 325 stop, and again 10. And that's totally personal. That's just the way I like my photos. You can obviously change it how you like in your photos. I think I'll crop the picture now. Let's get it to 4.5 is the biggest size you can get in Instagram. So that's usually how I crop my photos. And I think I want to capture more of the sky in the frame. I'll have the car, again, follow the rule of thirds. Try and get your car within the 4 crosshairs here. The ground's not very exciting, so if we cut out most of the ground, leave most of the sky, I obviously want the sun coming in from the right and have the car on the left. So let's fit that to frame and see. I think that's pretty good. Let's see, we can zoom in just a little more maybe. I don't want to lose a lot of that sky because it's just so cool. Looking at this small picture too kind of gives you a better preview of what it would look like, and as an example, an Instagram feed. When you're looking at the big picture, that can sometimes get lost. But that's pretty good. I think I like that. I don't think this one needs any more adjustments. Again, highlighting the rims, one of my favorite things. I wish I had done an exposure with the lights on, but that's okay. That sun's coming in through here, very nice. Let's see if we can add more of an effect to the sky here with the HSL color grading. Some of this is just trial and error. Don't want it to look unnatural, so I don't make a lot of drastic changes here. and maybe none at all. Yeah, I think I'll leave that alone. Saturation. I think this sky's kind of cool. Could pull some blue out of it. Maybe that's pretty good. 10 stop here. Aqua. I think we pulled aqua already on our stock photo, so I'll leave that alone. I think that's pretty good. I'm happy with that. Let's do a side by side with the original photo. Let me just copy the crop. Go back to this one. Paste that over so we have the exact same crop. And I'll show you a side by side with this picture. So here's the finished product. This is where we started. This was the car exposure. This is our finished picture. I think it's awesome. I hope you guys like it. If you did enjoy the video, click like and subscribe. I'll have more coming shortly, and I do plan on making a video of how I set up the scene to actually take photos. So I'll show you guys that as well. So I hope you enjoyed it, and see you next time.